Rwanda nde mesha kutu mesha makasi lobite kutu awa ya mabende lekaki mingi.
Why have you come here today to meet with this delegation? And what do you think about the peace process?
Delegation ndenge bino bokomi wana to sepeli pe ponango le ango tule makambo to zelande na boko na bino.
Do you want to become a part of the National Army?
Mingi omone biso balendo tozala kamoke tosi tobundi na ba ekolo ebele ba Rwanda ba Uganda mingi ezakaka pona konini pona konyokola kaka biso ba mususu bazoya kokabola Congo doke awa biloko ezotia awa Congo na biso etondi na richette mingi mais soki na koti na mosala soda ezateke na kende so epai nini fona zala na mboka na ngai to bate to mona soki monguna nini ekokota pona kokabola lisusu Congo na biso.
Nous avons un gouvernement qui peut avoir ces insuffisances. C'est un gouvernement qui a hérité cette situation d'insécurité.
Can you understand why people would be skeptical of that message of peace from you when you played such a significant role in the last war there when tens of thousands of people died and your side was accused of grave crimes? These men are former militia leaders, current military, and at least one convicted war criminal. They're working together on behalf of the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Nous partis à la forêt pour prendre des lapins.
They've been waiting for weeks to carry out the next phase of peace negotiations in rebel-held territory. And now they've finally got the state funds to go. We're with the Congolese military on our way to Jugu, an area that's been at the center of the conflict in Ituri province for the last few years. They're escorting what the government is calling a peace delegation, but they're actually former warlords who led the last conflict here. They'll meet up with active Codeco rebels who are still fighting in the field, and they say they'll convince them to stop the fighting and put their weapons down. There was a full-scale war in Ituri province in 1999 between ethnic Lendu and Hema groups. It ended in 2003, with tens of thousands dead on both sides. Now, a new conflict that started in 2017 is escalating. Floribert Njabu is a former Lendu warlord who led a militia in the last war. He's now the president of this delegation.
Donc le site, c'est juste ici?
Oui, partout ici.
Pour combien de gens?
Ils n'ont pas donné la liste, mais je crois qu'ils sont estimés peut-être à 1000 combattants.
Today, they were planning to make a case for the rebels to live at this site while disarming. But no one showed up. What is the site intended to be, and what's the process that will happen here?
On va procéder maintenant à identifier chaque combattant et à identifier le numéro de l'arme. Celui qui veut aller dans l'armée, on va aller dans l'armée. Il ne va pas faire longtemps ici. Celui-là, on le prend, il va demander à l'armée pour faire la formation. Ceux qui ne veulent pas aller dans l'armée, ils diront ce qu'ils veulent. S'ils veulent retourner à la vie civile, ok? Alors, ils veulent faire quoi? Peut-être l'élevage. Ils veulent faire quoi? L'agriculture. Ils veulent devenir chauffeur. On peut leur apprendre à rouler avec eux. Donc, il y aura tout un tas de services qui seront mis en œuvre ici.
How will you convince the men to come here?
Peut-être que vous ne les avez pas encore vus. Vous êtes venus, écoutez, si vous n'acceptez pas la paix, vous voyez d'où nous venons. Nous venons de la prison, n'est-ce pas? Alors, il ne faudra pas chercher des problèmes. Il faut accepter la main chef de l'État.
But right now, they're living in the villages, they have weapons, they're powerful, they're living with their families. Do you think they'll want to come and live here?
Dans le processus qui est vrai, il y a un bon nombre qui va venir. Il y en a qui ne vont pas venir. Nous en avons l'expérience par le passé. Tous ne viendront pas.
In the last war, the fighting was clearly along ethnic lines. The Lendu resented the Hema for what they saw as having more political power and land. And neighboring countries, Uganda and Rwanda, threw their money and weapons behind different militias. Then and now, forces both inside and outside the country stand to profit from destabilizing this mineral-rich region that's part of a lucrative and illegal international gold trade. And they're manipulating ethnic resentments to do it. This village is home to Kideko rebels, a loose coalition of mostly Lendu militias. They're the main perpetrators of this conflict, which has led to at least 1,000 dead. Last year, Congo's president called this an attempted genocide, and since then, few aid workers or journalists have been allowed into rebel territory. Some high-ranking rebels agreed to meet with the peace delegation in town to talk through their terms before agreeing to surrender their weapons.
Naza taximen ti eloko etina me manduki oyo depuis ba papa na biso bakufa kawa ba patron na biso bakufa kawa donc à partir wana nde mesha kutu mesha makasi lobite kutu awa ya mabende lekaki mingi.
Why have you come here today to meet with this delegation? And what do you think about the peace process?
Delegation ndenge bino bokomi wana to sepeli pe ponango ne ango tule makambo to zelande na boko na bino.
Do you want to become a part of the National Army?
Mingi omoni biso balendo tozala kamoke tosi tobundi na ba ekolo ebele ba Rwanda ba Uganda mingi ezakaka pona konini pona konyokola kaka biso ba mususu bazoya kokabola Congo. Donc awa biloko ezotia awa Congo na biso etondi na richette mingi. Mais so kina koti na mosala soda ezateke na kende so epa nini fona zala na mboka na ngai to bate to mona soki munguna nini ekokota pona kokabola lisusu Congo na biso.
Since 2017, 2 million people have fled their homes due to the conflict. In the last 6 months, there's been a surge in attacks, leading to hundreds of thousands of new, majority Hema, internally displaced people, or IDPs, to flood into camps like this one. Colette Weka survived a rebel raid in August.
Kwa kushambulia baliingia na usiku kuna kucha pale saa 12. Ndio banaingia kwa kuchambulia siku nyingine. Abusiku kuna katika na tuku na bako na uasie. Ndio tuko nakimbia ndani ya kitu mdele hii. Wakati nyeba naingia bako nafuata kila mtu kumlango. Kuchoma nyumba, kuchoma nyumba na kuchoma nyumba. Tena kuua bako na uwa na mpanga na mkuki na nini na mshali ndio bako na uwa na esi. Bunduki kuna kwa tokea na nyumba na banisha uwa nyingi na msali. Bata bunduki tafika nyuma kwanja uwa banye kuna kimbia yulu.
And how did you manage to escape with your children?
Bana ingia kunyumba si vile tunaponyoka. Ndio natia na watoto ine tunaponyoka tunaacha wengine wanisha waua baba yao na watoto wengine wanisha waua.
There are 64 refugee camps in Ituri, and they can only house about 12% of all of those who've been displaced. Some, like Xavier Lusigo, who's an ethnic Hema, chose to wait for a spot to open up.
Yele tu pale ya kulala yele. Kila siku hapa tunalala usiku na mchana. Hata mvua inanyesha, anatupika hata na vuruga na bapepo inatusumbua tu hapa.
Lusigo's family fled in March after rebels torched and looted their village. A horrifying story we heard over and over again. Did you know why they were attacking all these villages?
Kutoka kwetu tunaona tu ni uwizi. Bao biona banakuya bana kisirani kama ya nini tunajua tu hiyo badui. Batuchukia tu juu ya mali yetu. Batuchukia tu juu ya mali yetu.
Were you here during the last war in Ituri?
Ile lipata mimi niko pale. Ile vikia sawa ile vile kuwaua watu na kupora mali ya watu. Ile napita mambo mbele watu likia balikia lima vile batarudia batazola vile ba chakula yabo na kurudia na kuiba. Hii sasa nashinda inatutosha mbali sana. Namna kurudia hata kulokota kingine hapana. Tunakuya tu hivi.
Do you think the government will end the violence here?
Government ndio baba yetu. Tunajua baba yetu wa government. Batupiganisha ile ndio kilio yetu kila mara. Hata kuomba na Mungu tunaomba tu hivi.
The government says the work of the peace delegation will allow IDPs to return home. They've succeeded in convincing some Kideko rebel groups to demobilize. But at least one has already reneged, attacking villages and army positions on the outskirts of Ituri's capital. In October, 5,000 people were displaced in a single day. These UN troops are conducting night patrols on the outskirts of Bunia in response to ongoing rebel attacks just a few miles outside of the city in these villages in the last few days. They're securing the main roads, the city borders, talking to new IDPs flooding into the city, and to village leaders to find out what the situation is here. There has long been skepticism that the UN peacekeeping mission is actually helping. They've been here for 20 years and currently have some 12,500 troops on the ground. Kenyan national Josiah Obad has served with the UN since 2006 and is in charge of the mission here. So in the 20 years that the UN has been involved in Congo, there's been many failed disarmament processes. And the negotiation with Kideko is to reintegrate them into the army. Do you think that's problematic?
The UN does not support a process that integrates wholesome armed groups, particularly those that have committed serious human rights violations, into the national army. It's not a way to build a credible national army.
In the Jugu peace process, do you think it's problematic that the government has sent former warlords back to negotiate peace in the same area that they led the conflict?
I think we're here to work with the government, and I would not venture in making an opinion about a decision that has been made by the president.
It seems like it's almost becoming a business where in this region, if you pick up arms, you can be guaranteed on some level to be reintegrated into the army, or at least that's what their leaders are telling them.
That is the concern. There are other groups that say, no, that should not be the way. You pick up arms, you kill people, and then you end up in the army. It's like we are rewarding impunity.
Lendu fighters are increasingly attacking civilians of several ethnic groups indiscriminately. But if Hema militias start to organize, this could again become an all-out war. Asimwe Bahati is Hema and fought in the last conflict. He's lost 8 family members in the last few months. Were you surprised that the violence flared up in Ituri again?
Ya kisha ile vita zamani ya zamani inaisha, tulikuwa mzuri, tulikuwa kala pamoja, tulikuwa kula pamoja, tulikuwa pita kwetu na tunapita kwabo. Ile ya juzi ilianja siku tuko Mungwalo, tukasikia tu banafunga kobu barabara, nakawaka batu sana. Sasa mwingine alikuwa anaamini ataenda kwa nje, ndio kama iko kweli, bana muua.
So do you actually think it's about hatred between the Lendus and the Hema, or do you think somebody else is pulling the strings behind this war?
Sasa mimi sione kitu inaweza cha tupigira, kwani hata mimi kwanza mimi sina kofia mlendo. Hiyo tu mauaji nyingi wanafanya. Inaweza kuko mtu mmoja kwa nyuma ile kitu nyeko na basukuma, sisi bafanye ile mauaji selo mimi inaweza kwa vile. Mimi sababu kuko mtu mwenye na basukuma sisi bafanye ile kitu.
So what's stopping you from defending yourself this time around?
Wote tulisikia ça fait 3 ans ile. Wakasema hii vita ya sasa gouvernement iko hapa, hatutaki ataki ana moya muhema kamate bunduki tena enda fa defense. Messi tulikuwa tayari.
Do you have the weapons and the funding to defend yourselves?
Officiellement kuna arme yenye iko kwa kupiga wale watu. Kama ilikuwa kama hata tuzoea mpaka pale. Sege tunaweza sema bref haiko.
But unofficially, is the community prepared?
Kwa uficho vile kuna kitu tunaweza sema yele kitu yenu tunaficha hapa kusudi mtajidefend na ile vile haiko. Sisi tunaikala sasa muongoye.
Congo's president says that peace in Ituri is a priority. His critics say sending former warlords to demobilize over 20,000 rebels with no clear plans for reintegration is a setup for failure. But Njabu dismisses the skeptics.
The international community has said they won't participate in this peace process and that it needs to have some element of justice for war crimes, especially before people are integrated into the army. What's your response to that?
Si le pays veut à ce qu'on ait la paix, elle peut prendre des décisions qui ne sont peut-être pas confortables pour la justice. Par exemple, si maintenant vous commencez à arrêter les miliciens, ils ne vont pas arrêter avec la guerre. Aujourd'hui, on n'aura pas la paix. Il y a beaucoup de victimes. Si l'État congolais estime dans sa souveraineté qu'il est important pour eux de prendre les gens dans l'armée, c'est ça la souveraineté de notre pays.
But you're going around promising these guys jobs or integration into the army when the government can't necessarily provide that.
On n'a jamais promis aux gens, voilà, non, ça, il n'y en a pas. C'est donnant-donnant. Nous essayons de faire la paix. Alors si nous disons à ces gars ici qu'on va vous faire ça, A, B, C, D, que ce n'est pas vrai, après nous tirent dessus. Hein.
Ce qu'on est en train de vivre aujourd'hui a commencé à mon absence. J'ai été en Ituri il y a quelques semaines et c'est vrai, la situation que moi j'ai trouvée en Ituri est déplorable.
Thomas Lubanga was just released from prison 6 months ago. The founder and former leader of an armed group called the FPLC, Lubanga was sentenced to 14 years after he was found guilty of war crimes by the International Criminal Court for his role in the last Ituri conflict.
The crimes of conscripting and enlisting children under the age of 15.
It was the first ever trial and conviction by the ICC. Lubanga maintains his innocence.
J'ai travaillé pour arrêter le massacre. Je l'ai fait mieux que ce qui s'est fait, mais c'est ce qui s'est fait aujourd'hui. Mais on m'a amené accusé d'enrôlement d'enfants, juste pour m'empêcher de jouer un rôle qui pouvait aider l'Ituri, qui pouvait aider le pays. C'est ça ce que moi j'ai compris. Et ceux-là qui ont massacré les gens à cette époque en Ituri, personne n'a été condamné. Je vous l'ai dit, personne.
Do you believe you were unfairly convicted then?
C'est un jeu qui a été joué. On m'a juste empêché de jouer un rôle utile en Ituri et au Congo à un moment.
But you weren't convicted for bringing peace, you were convicted for waging war, for recruiting thousands of child soldiers.
Moi, je vous l'ai dit. Je ne suis pas un monstre pour faire ce dont on m'a accusé. Pas du tout. Je ne suis pas un monstre.
It's not me who's saying, I'm not saying you're a monster. I'm saying there's a lot of evidence, not just about the child soldiers, but about war crimes that were committed under your command. Not from one person, not just from the ICC, but from many, many people during that time period. And it can't all be fake.
Madame, j'aurais bien voulu que vous assistiez au procès où j'ai été condamné. Avec la presse, vous avez créé M. Thomas Lubanga en 2002-2003, avec la Cour pénale internationale, le plus grand criminel. Hein? Vous m'avez sorti de l'Ituri. Mais allez voir la situation aujourd'hui. C'est 100 fois, 1000 fois pire que ce que nous avons laissé.
And now what role are you playing, now that you're back in the country?
Je joue un rôle. Le rôle que je joue, c'est celui de lancer des messages de paix, de ceux-là qui sont en train de massacrer leurs semblables gratuitement. Nous avons un gouvernement qui peut avoir ces insuffisances. C'est un gouvernement qui a hérité cette situation d'insécurité du gouvernement qui l'a précédé. Mais aujourd'hui, l'importance des drames est telle qu'il faut une mobilisation de la communauté internationale.
But isn't the international community already there on the ground with the MONUSCO peacekeeping forces?
Je crois qu'il n'y a pas encore une mobilisation conséquente de la communauté internationale face à ce génocide. le mode opératoire de la MONUSCO actuelle ne correspond pas à la situation sécuritaire qu'on est en train de vivre en Ituri. Et je crois que face au génocide, c'est une urgence internationale qui se décide.
Can you understand why people would be skeptical of that message of peace from you when you played such a significant role in the last war there when tens of thousands of people died and your side was accused of grave crimes?
Écoutez, moi je crois que ceux qui m'ont vu agir à cette époque ont une image différente de l'image qui a été balancée au niveau de la communauté internationale. En Ituri, les gens savent qui je suis. Les gens savent ce que moi je fais. Je crois que mon dernier passage en Ituri peut le témoigner. Hein? Parce que si j'étais un criminel tel que j'ai été présenté, je n'aurais pas pu être accueilli chez moi tel que cela a été. Et les gens se sont confiés en moi, parce qu'ils ont confiance en moi. Et je pense que encore aujourd'hui, ce que je peux dire peut être compris par les Ituriens. Je le dis déjà et c'est compris.